Okay, hi everybody. Today in J2 Studios, I've got Mitch, and he's a former board president, board member.
I was a board member and a general manager. And before I was that, I had a different life, as everyone does. And I was a superintendent of one of our nation's nuclear weapons laboratories, and been heavily involved in transformation of organizations, facilities, functions, and people.
Yeah.
And I retired and came to Washington State and moved into a beautiful HOA.
Yeah.
And when I moved in, like everyone else, I had rosy colored glasses on, beautiful glasses. And it was a gorgeous place. In fact, this HOA at one time was the largest in the state, very big, over 3,000 members. It was beautiful. I attended a meeting one day, and at the meeting I asked a question, then I asked another question. As I was leaving, someone grabbed me by the shirt tail and said, "Come here, I want to talk to you."
Would you be our DM?
Well, no, actually it said, "Listen, you seem to understand finances and you understand strategies, and would you join our finance committee?" And so I joined their finance committee. I have a fairly good understanding and grasp of capital planning and strategy planning and long-term sustainment of facilities and infrastructure. And I said, "Sure, yeah, I'd love to." And so I was on the finance committee, and shortly thereafter realized we're not being very well served by the management company that's here. And we started to do some capital planning, and we kept pushing the management company to please produce a project manager for us.
Right.
And they sent us a maintenance guy. And he said, "Well, here's your project manager." And I said, "No, I think I understand what a project manager is, and this is not a project manager."
Right.
So would you get us one? And they said, "Well, this is your guy." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think this is our guy." And I think we shortly met thereafter.
Okay, gotcha.
There was that place had a big, beautiful, brand new library that the members had spent a lot of money of their own and installed this library in an old building, old barn. And I said, "Well, listen, guys, if the outside of the barn looks pretty shabby and this library looks beautiful, why don't we do the outside of the barn? Let's bring up the barn and make it look really nice." And so I think that was our first project. I picked up the phone, we talked, you came in, we made a deal. It's like, you guys are going to go do an assessment on it. And I remember I was in a finance meeting there one night. It was 2 days after you started. And he came over and said, "I need to talk to you." And I came out of the finance meeting and you said, I think you have a problem. There's a major infestation,
Right.
And the building is not stable. In fact, we think this is a dead building. And I said, "Okay." And I went in and mentioned that to the finance committee chair, whose face just became ashen. Oh my gosh. The community was devastated. Over a short period of time, you were able to prove the building was not sound, and we had to actually move the library out of this brand. They put a box inside a box and move the people out of that building, and then we had to strengthen it and shore it.
Yeah.
But while we were doing that, I believe we had another interesting project because the association wanted to do other things. And I said, "Well, your clubhouse looks pretty shabby. Why don't we go rebuild the outside of the clubhouse?" So
this was a golf course clubhouse. So
that's right. It's 28,000 square foot building, 2 stories. And like a lot of other buildings in this particular association, it had been maintained over the years by their in-house maintenance people who had modified it and changed it and adapted it. And we assumed, I came to you and said, "Look, we're going to do things differently than what the association used to. We want a full set of specifications on it."
Yep.
And you said, "But it's more like a government thing." And I said, "Well, this is a big place. We're going to do a full Construction Standard Institute spec set on it, and we're going to spec this thing out, and then we're going to go get an independent estimate, and then we'll go out to bid, and we're going to hire your company to do the entire process," which the association was not used to. And we had to show them, look, the value gained here is that this is not our skill set. This is their skill set. Hire an outside professional to manage the creation and establishment of the specifications. We'll tell them what we want done. So we told you the scope.
Yep.
And then you came back and said, "Well, let's negotiate on scope." Some of the things that we asked for, you said not wise, and we talked about it and agreed. And so collaboratively between us, the scope was very well fleshed out. And we got good estimates, and then you put it out to bid. Your company managed the bid process, came to us and said, here are the companies, here's the relative bids, the pluses and the minuses, and gave us your recommendation. We hired that company. And then you provided us with a construction manager. Now, that was something else the association, and most associations are not used to. They don't understand. The contractor can come in and do the work, but you want to make sure that the scope that they're working on matches the specifications that we spent all that money to create, and that's the product that we get at the end of the job, that it matches the quality that we asked for. And
was that beneficial to have somebody just weekly meeting, running the construction meeting?
Oh my gosh.
Meeting minutes?
Absolutely. I put a manager, the golf pro actually was our contact, and we put him in the meeting, and he was stunned at the professionalism. He said he had never seen a job operated like this. And having the meeting allowed me to tell the board of directors, this is what's going on in the association, here's what's happening in the construction, here's how it is proceeding financially. Financial reports were being tracked to product, and they were rather stunned. They were not used to hearing, here's the percent complete, and here's how much money we've spent, and we're staying on budget, we're staying on track, and we're staying on schedule. They were like, oh my gosh, it's just not like an arm wave. No, it was a professionally run project. Very helpful. Project finished on schedule, within budget. There were a couple of problems that I thought were fascinating. Most interesting was when your structural people came to me and said, the decks aren't attached to the building. I said, really?
And that was the big deck off the restaurant.
That's right, big, huge, two of them. And they and previously, a couple of years earlier, they had rebuilt the decks, and they just weren't attached. And so a little change order there, attached them to the building. They were now structurally sound. The building was much more stable. And then there was a problem, if you remember, your architect came to me and showed me stairs for the outside new steps. The steps weren't installed to code originally. They were terrible. And I said, well, I like this. And I selected one. I selected one of the steps. And you said, okay, fine, thank you. And they were purchased and they were installed. Along comes the county inspector. Inspector said, sorry, I reject the steps. They're not to code. And he said, why? And so someone came to me and said, well, what are you going to do about it? And I said, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call J2's construction manager. And he looked at it and said, well, you're the customer. You chose something, but it was our responsibility to make sure that it met code. Pull them all out. Let's put a new one in. And your company and the contractor agreed. They pulled them out. They installed new ones that met code, repainted it, no cost to us, saved us $3,000. I appreciate that to this day. And I've told many people that. This is the reason you do business with very good quality companies that will stand behind their engineering, their inspection, and their standards. That was important. It was a significant thing to us. All right. Previous to this, again, this association was used to, could you do this job for us? How much? Thank you very much. Let us know when you're done. No, had to raise the bar. And certainly working with you did that. And there was, without question, this is how we're going to do work from now on. It will save us money, and it will cost money, but you want to buy something that when you end up paying the bill, you've got the quality derived for the cash given. And before this, it was low bid, low quality. Now it's best value bid, best quality.
And it's probably important to note that there were 8 or 9 other projects, and we only helped you with 2 of them or 3 of them, and
a lot of other projects,
a lot of other projects, a lot of other vendors, and in their specific wheelhouse, and so use us where you want to use us. And
in our time together, we did some shelters together. We did this building together. We worked on that failed facility, but there were other projects. I brought in other engineering firms. It's not that our relationship has been, okay, you're a one-off and the one only. No, you've bid and you've been competitive, and in some places you've won the bids, and in other places you haven't. But you continue to bid, and I see no reason why that would change. And I would recommend, if you want a full-service engineering company, people should go to one, and you provided that. In fact, I think the reason that all these other engineers missed the first problem is that they didn't send in multiple engineers with multiple perspectives to look at a facility and then spot a problem. And you guys did within 2 days.
What did you, after working with us, what do you have to say to other board members that are watching it saying, here's why you should do X?
You've got limited resources. You've got limited cash to spend. You really want to get the best value you can for the cash that you're going to put out. And you're going to want to make sure that the members see that the end product that you have obtained through the expenditure of your funds is a very good quality product. If the product is not going to hold up, if the product cannot be maintained, you're not going to look good. Your customers are going to be very unhappy. Your association is going to be very unhappy. You really want to do business with an engineering firm. Don't take it for granted that a contractor can show up and say, trust me. No, don't do that. And you want to have the contractors validated. You want to have their references checked. You want to have a construction manager and a project manager. And don't just turn the job over to someone. You want to oversee that as a client point of contact. I have found that working with J2 has been a very rewarding experience, a successful partnership, and I have zero complaints about it, and I would highly recommend that you talk to them, sit down and discuss your projects cradle to grave. Don't try to short circuit it out. Cradle to grave, nuts to bolts.
Thank you, Mitch.
You're welcome, gents.
That's wonderful. So, yeah, thank you for watching.